Hello everyone, and let's talk a book review. This one was an ebook. So we're going to talk about the book Journey by... who the heck? Hang on. Okay, so I have the author pulled up. It's Gary V like Victor, Gary V. Brill. This is not the only book that the author has written. When I look at the author profile on Goodreads, the author also wrote Driving in Budapest. So, yeah, we are going to talk about this one today. So, Journey. This is one that I actually won from a giveaway on Goodreads. And I have to admit, I really enjoyed it. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. Now, there's no chapters in this. There are 2 parts. But there are no chapters. So this one, it's told in third person, and we're following mainly from the perspective of a gentleman by the name of James. And James is a black man. This is during the early 1900s, and this is actually set, no, not the 1900s. What year? I'm blanking on the year, but it's set during the Revolutionary War. At least part 1. Part 2 is set at least 10 to 15 years after the Revolutionary War, and then it just continues on after that. So this was published in 2020, and this is a standalone book. So James talks about how he is experiencing racism, how there are people who are white that don't care that he's black. There are people that do care, that they think that the only place for a black man is as a slave. And some people don't differentiate between being born free and being freed from slavery. That just doesn't matter. You have what's called slavers, who are people that would go and find any black person. Didn't matter if they were free or not. They would basically abduct them or kidnap them and then take them to where slavery was legal. So they would enter states where slavery was not legal. So they would enter states and take them across borders and sell them into slavery, which is disgusting. But so we're following Luke as he is actually a member of the American Regiment Army. Anyway, he fights in the Revolutionary War. So it talks about his experience, about him going to these meetings, about wondering where the British are going to invade. He owns a property where he takes care of people's horses. There are these 3 white men that show up, kind of basically harassing him. So this book is full of racism, so do be aware of that. But you also need to keep in mind it is set during the Revolutionary War, where that stuff was very rampant. The way it is then, the way it was then, with slavery, and people that were black couldn't be out past sundown, basically. They weren't allowed outside at night, otherwise they would get in big trouble. And according to the book, it was because they were harder to see. Stupid. So there's a lot of talk of someone being free versus not free. James has... I'm blanking on the other guy's name, but he has his friend who helps him with the horses. And this guy is basically considered a runaway slave, and James does what he can to protect him. And he takes him to, at one point, to his dad's farm. Now, James does work with other people. There's a lot of talk about like how Quakers were very much against slavery. It very much went against their religion. Even a lot of Christians would not condone slavery because it was against their religion. However, there were Christians that did believe in slavery. And I liked the distinction in the book that he called those Christians that believed in slavery and oppressing people that were black because of the color of their skin. They called them Christian wolves. So basically a wolf in sheep's clothing type of a thing. And you have a wolf in sheep's clothing within any organization, any religion, any job, you've got bad apples in any group. You name a group, you've got some bad apples. So we're just following as he is dealing with all of this. He ends up at one point, so again, in part 1, it's set during the Revolution, and so you're seeing a lot of fight obviously during the Revolution with the British, and things like that. So you do get a lot of that, people do get shot, animals get shot. So do be aware, there is injury. And you do see a lot of the fear and the concerns that people have. Now, with looking at the profile, Gary is a white man, so this is not coming from a black POV. So something to be aware of. But I do feel like Gary did his research. Now, part 2, 1814. Why I said okay, so 1814 is when part 1 was. I said 1900s, and I'm like, that is so not right. 1814. And then part 2 starts out in 1830. So James in part 2 is now living with his friend, and they have a family. And trigger for, obviously, racism throughout this whole book. Kidnapping into slavery, abduction, death of a loved one, kidnapping of a loved one, and things like that. So it does have quite a bit of that. Oh, Luke is the other perspective. That's his friend who is a runaway slave, and things like that. I think my favorite part of this book was actually part 2, when they had their family, and you can see how much the community cares for them. They don't care about the color of your skin, which is the way it should be. The color of your skin doesn't indicate what type of a person you are. Okay, and it should not. So, in part 2, James and a lot of the other people there, black and white, work together to help slaves that are across the border who want to find their freedom. So they sneak them across the border. It's not really, they do mention the Underground Railroad, and they're on a railroad of sorts. It's not like actually a physical railroad, but they call it a railroad, where they take a black person who was enslaved, and they help them find passage to somewhere where they can be free and live and breathe as a free person, which was the way it should have been. So a lot of people did that. Now, as the time goes on, it gets harder to help people find their freedom, because more and more white people and people who were black, who were paid to blow the whistle for people who were helping protest slavery with the meetings, or where these railroads took place to help people find their freedom. People were paid off, black and white, doesn't matter. There's more and more animosity between the people who want to see slavery continue and those that don't. And there are people that are very good at acting all nice, and then they turn around and basically stab you in the back. So there is a lot of that, and you do get a lot of that sense in this book. So that's pretty much what we're following. Obviously, people get hurt, and that's just unfortunate what happens with war, and trying to help people find their freedom, which is the right thing to do, and was the right thing during that time. So, and that's pretty much all I can say. I don't want to spoil anything, and I do recommend this. Just be aware, it is a harder read because of the topic of the slavery and a lot of the racism that is portrayed in this book. So let's go into the words. Okay, so you have, I've got a mark. I have this all written down, and I have to mark so I don't tell you the same word twice. So this word came up, and I was actually surprised it came up in this word, and that's the word pussy. It's not used in a sexual way, like when you read, that word comes up in a lot of romance books, especially steamy or erotica. In this case, it's like, oh, don't be such a thing, or quit pussyfooting around. That was the type of saying, but it is in the book. It's in there one time. The other word that's in there one time is shit. There is religious talk in this as well. Again, as far as believing in God or not, and hell and all of that. So you do have the name of Jesus in here 4 times. You also have the word ass 4 times. So just, just a variety of words. The name of Christ is in here 5, and sometimes it is a combination of the first and last name, but each one gets a tally. So, and again, some of the meetings to talk about how to stand up to people who were pro-slavery did take place in a church setting. There's talk from a pastor. They do reference that. So there is a little bit of religious. I did not read any scriptures and stuff, but there were people who, you know, again, it was the whole, I'm Christian, I'm against slavery, or if you claim to be a Christian, but you're for slavery or pro-slavery, they would call you a Christian wolf. So, okay, let's see. What other words do you need to be aware of? You have the word bitch, comes in here 8 times. And I don't know how accurate some of these words are, but wouldn't surprise me. As far as what was really said during the 1800s, but because vocabulary evolves. You have the word bastard, comes up 10 times. The word Lord comes up 21. Hell comes up 45. The name of God comes up 60, and damn 75 times. Now this next word that comes up, I saved this one for last because I'm not going to say the word. I just refuse to say the word. But it is the word that is used, and definitely was used back then, as a very, very much a mean, slur, derogatory word for a black person. And that is the word that starts with N, like November. And that's as close as I'm getting to that. So it is in there several times. There's one point where it has the first letter, and then there's like dash, 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 and then the last letter. Or the first letter, was it dash, dash? No. It was like the first 2 or 3 letters, and then it's like it stopped because the person that was saying it suddenly stopped what they were saying due to a look that they got or something like that. So that word comes up 57.5 times in this book. So do be aware, it is full of racism, and I think the author put that slur in there to, one, that's how people talked back then. So it is true to how people actually talked, and 2, to try to help convey how much racism there was. Did it need to be in there that many times? I'm not gonna judge that. It was uncomfortable to read. I personally wish it would not have been in there. I think there are other ways to convey that, but it is true to how people that were extremely racist talked and still talk when they're very racist. So I'm not surprised that it was in there. So just something to definitely be aware of. So let me know, have you read Journey by Gary V. Brill? Have you read the other book that I had mentioned? Is this something that you are even interested in reading? I know a lot of people like to read historical fiction, but they get kind of worn out, especially with World War II and a lot of World War I, because they are the ones that are used for the most when it is a war-based book, especially World War II. So let me know, with this being the Revolutionary War and only in the first part of the book, is that something that you are interested in? Talk to me in the comment section below, and until next time, stay true to yourself and enjoy a good book, and I'll talk to you later.